that I guess is the end of the Blair part of the book.
Right.
So now we come to the Grenfell part of the book, and this is my paternal grandmother. Her name was Jane Simmons, and she was a twin. I don't know whatever happened to her twin, but she came over with my grandfather when they were both about, I guess, 20. They had had a daughter, Janie, who died while they still lived in Cornwall, England. And then they had another daughter shortly after that, and she was called Janie, and she lived. And she's the only one who was born in England, the oldest and the only one born in England.
And what drew them to the United States?
Grandfather was a tin and copper miner, and as the industry petered out in Cornwall and in England, they decided that they would come to America. And he had brothers and sisters as well, and some of them came to America too. But he came with a group of his friends, and they stayed together, and they traveled from state to state and worked the mines, and as they petered out, they would go to another one. Aunt Emily was the second child born in Wisconsin. My father was born, third child born. He was born in Upper Peninsula of Michigan. And then Mary was the next child born. She was born in Upper New York State. And Clara was the baby, and she was born in New Jersey, in a town called Wharton, which is close to Dover, where they had the mines. And there was a place called Mine Hill, and that's where they bought a lovely old organ, you know, an organ that you had to pump with your feet.
Mm-hmm.
And the organ, we'd enjoy that organ at Aunt Janie's and a lot. And Eleanor, my first cousin, who was Mary's daughter, learned to play the organ. And my Aunt Clara could play the organ, and so we had jingle bells on the organ lots of times, and it was fun. It was really fun. The organ is still alive. It's still with my first cousin Eleanor, who was Mary's daughter, my father's second youngest sister. My father was my father's siblings died from the youngest to the oldest. The youngest died at 54, and that was Aunt Clara, and she died of cancer of the throat.
Did
And
she
then-
smoke?
No, no, you know, their message was taken out. The then Aunt Mary died. Aunt Mary was not very robust or very healthy, and she died second. Then Aunt Emily died. Then Aunt Emily died. Then my father died. That was a little regression there. Then Aunt Janie, who was the oldest, lived the longest. She lived to be 98. Aunt Janie was both blind and deaf when she died, but a robust character, and her heart was strong, and she lived to be 98. She was a great, great person. I'm so happy to have known all these sisters of my father. They were great fun to be with. We always had holidays together. It was a routine that we followed every year. It was Christmas. When I say Aunt Janie's, it's really my grandfather's house, and he was alive until I was 15 years old. And so Aunt Janie kept house for him after her mother died. So when I say Aunt Janie's, it's really my grandfather's house that I'm talking about. And we had Christmas there, and Aunt Janie and Aunt Emily would prepare a wonderful Christmas dinner, which was very English, very British. And we had that all the time. Not everybody liked plum pudding, but I loved it. Not everybody liked saffron bread, but I loved it. And we had all these traditional things. Thanksgiving, we always went to Aunt Mary's. And 4th of July, we always went to Aunt Clara's. New Year's Day, we always came to my mother's and father's house. And so we did the holidays. Any insignificant holiday, we went somewhere, a friend or a relative of the family's. So we grew up with quite a routine, and we knew what to expect year after year, every summer, every winter. And that was really fun.
And they all lived in the Patterson area?
Yes, they all did. They always bought a two-family house, my grandfather did. And my grandfather and Aunt Janie and Aunt Emily always lived upstairs. Aunt Mary and Uncle Jake and Eleanor and Albert, my cousins, lived downstairs. And that, wherever they lived, that was the pattern they had. Aunt Clara branched out on her own. She was the youngest, and she had her own house and her own husband. But they always lived not too far from each other, and this is in Patterson. Yeah, they came from Wharton to Patterson.
That's your grandfather there.
That's my grandfather there. He's the only grandparent I ever knew. And by the time I knew him, he was not very well. He couldn't talk very well. And I can remember going with my father. My father would cut his hair, and shave him and take care of him. And we had
After he retired from the mining business, what did he do?
After he retired from the mining business, he bought a beautiful black carriage with bouquet holders inside and a lovely big horse, and he became a taxi man. He used to come down to the Erie station in Patterson and pick up people who'd get off the train and take them wherever they wanted to be taken. He did that for a while, and I remember riding in that carriage. He brought it down to Clifton one time, and we took a ride on Hazel Street, which is part of Clifton. That's what I remember about that, with a beautiful bouquet and the fresh flowers inside. Afterward, when I was married to Chet Ellis Sr., we found out, going through Albert Ellis's, my father-in-law's ledgers, that he had been the blacksmith who shod the horses of Thomas Ellis Grenfell. So there was that connection, and although they were not...
Unknown to both of them, but
That's right, unknown to both of them. Because we didn't meet the Ellis family until I was 15 years old, and by that time my grandfather had just died. And so that was, we had a connection there. And this is Tom when he had some hair. I really don't remember my father with hair. But I remember him, he was bald. And I used to cut his hair after my father died. Not after my father died, no, because it was my father's whose hair I was cutting. This is my mother and my father. These are pictures when they were quite young. And then my mother and father. Are there two children here or just one?
Just yourself.
Yeah,
I believe.
and the first child. The queen for 3 years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
princess.
Oh, the princess, that's right. Now I think we have two children here. Edith was born 3 years after I was born. She was born in 1911.
And where were you both born?
We were both born in my parents' home in Patterson, New Jersey. When I was 4 years old and Edith was 1 year old, my father bought a piece of property on a farm in Clifton, and it was being developed into houses, streets and houses. And he bought the property and built the house, and that's where I lived until I was married. And he went back to live after I was married for a little while when, during the Depression, and I had a child, and your grandfather was in school, so we just went back there because I took a year off from teaching, so it helped out both families to live together. And here we have Edith and Mildred sitting on the steps of the house where we grew up in Clifton. Those steps had to be swept and kept clean.
Until what age were you in that house?
22.
Oh,
I lived
really?
there until I was 22, from age 4 till 22. And this is a high school picture of mine. That's what I looked like in high school.
Is that your senior class portrait?
Probably. And this is Edith's senior class picture when she was in high school. So you see, we did go to high school and got out too.
That's your wedding, I think.
Yes, this is my wedding, and this is Pop and Edith and Uncle Bob and me.
Right.
Uncle Bob Ellis.
Uncle Bob Ellis. Yeah.
Uncle Bob was Pop-Up's best man?
He was. And there's a nice little story there. Edith almost couldn't make the wedding because it was in the summertime in July, and she was working at the Hotel Warren at Spring Lake, New Jersey as a waitress. And the maitre d' said he would not let her come home for the wedding. And she said, well, if you don't let me come home for the wedding, then I'm not coming back to work here at all. Well, he said, all right, you go home for the wedding, but come right back. So she came home for the wedding.
Called his bluff, huh?
Called his bluff. Uncle Bob was late for the wedding. Uncle Bob lived in New York City, and he had 2 buses to take to get to Patterson to the church. And he was late, so we waited for half an hour for him to come, and then we had the wedding. And
So the oldest brother, who was 16 years older, got
Yes.
married later than the youngest brother.
that's right, yeah. But he had his child
Yeah.
a little before we did,
Oh, he hadn't been married up to
No,
this
he
point?
hadn't been married,
He
no.
was,
He was 16 years older, which put him in his 30s.
no, he was, he got married at 23.
Almost 23.
Yeah, that's
16.
right, I'm
40.
sorry, yeah,
He was
in the 40s.
39, yeah.
Yeah,
And he and Elaine was my age, and he got married. They got married. They had Bobby, spelled with 2 E's on the end. And this is me in my wedding dress. You don't see much of the dress.
Right.
And this is your grandfather when he was graduated from college, from New York University, engineering department. And here we have my oldest child, your father, Chet.
In various,
Yes, here he is practicing on his piano.
Now, I don't have that picture in my album.
You don't?
No, just for the record.
Okay. I wonder how that happened. And maybe,
oh,
I'm sure I have extra ones if we find one.
Okay.
And here he is as a, I guess, a preteen. This is his college picture from Lafayette College. And then we come to Ginny. Ginny as a little girl. And Ginny's still a little girl, but a little older than a little girl.
Mm-hmm.
And this is her high school.
that's college too.
That's
I
her
think.
college.
College, yeah.
Yeah, that's her college picture.
Looks pretty mature.
Yeah.
There you and Papa.
Two good-looking kids, aren't they? Yeah, here we are out in the woods. I think that might be in Pennsylvania.
That's fun. I mean, that picture's interesting to me because that's how I remember Papa.
Yeah,
Was you two exactly like that?
Yes.
Pretty much the same shirt.
yeah.
And
Well, you know, it's funny, he was only in his 60s there, he was probably in his middle 60s, and he always looked, when he was sick, he looked so much older.
Yeah. Well, being sick does make you look older.
Yeah.
Is this,
that's just you. That's your
Oh.
That's just a lot of reflection.
oh, I'm sitting on, I think it's a
You're
Halloween
sitting on,
or
out
Thanksgiving.
here on the,
Yes, yeah.
yeah.